Paula Show is on. The Paula Show. Come on, one and all. I extend an invitation to the Paula Show. Join in the conversation. Transforming behavior, recognizing our Savior, overcoming hurdles, achieving dreams. Together we can succeed.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Paula Show. Tonight we're speaking about politics, and Lonnie Richards has joined us for the conversation, as well as Kamali Mannix. At the Paula Show tonight, these young people will speak about the global pushback of young people. They are oftentimes only remembered at election time. And they are courageous, they are brilliant, and they have something to bring to the table. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. Understanding the youth demographic and politics. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Stay with us, please. Thank you for staying with us on The Paula Show. Remember to watch The Paula Show via CTV Channel 2 on Tuesday nights at 9 and Sundays there's a rebroadcast at 1 in the afternoon. The Paula Show inspires, entertains, and transforms behavior. Like me on Facebook as well, The Paula Show. And you can view The Paula Show programs via YouTube at The Paula Show TV. Tonight we're speaking about politics, and I've invited Kamali Mannix and Lonnie Richards to help us through this conversation. Hello, guys. Thank you for accepting our invitation to the Paula Show.
Thank you for the invitation.
No problem.
Very
It's
good.
always fun to
Kamali,
come.
you know your way around this set, right? But Lonnie is a newbie. But Lonnie is really gifted, so I know you're going to be pleased with their presentation tonight. They are awesome young people, brilliant, and they're courageous. That's how I love them. In 2019, there were about 1.2 billion youth aged 15 to 24 in the world. You guys are still within that group, right?
Yes.
Oh, Kamali, you're a little bit out. Still in?
Still in, still in.
I'm already out.
That's just about 16% of the global population. Young people do not like to engage in the voting process. It's a problem all across the globe. Tell me, when you guys hear about politics, what are your thoughts? I know what I think as an adult, but it's all about young people tonight. You're representing billions of people. Tell me, what are your thoughts when you hear about the word politics?
Okay, I think when I think about politics, the first thing that comes to mind is the lamppost that was in front of my old house where my grandmother lived. And there was always a poster there on the lamppost every election. And, you know, this is back in the 2000s, yes. So you know who's lamppost. Well, you have an idea of who was running at those times. Because I lived in Golden Grove, so I knew who was running. And that his picture was always there every election. And it would just stay there until, you know, it sort of came off. And the next election came around and it was just there. And I think when I think about elections, that's the first thing. Or when I think about politics, that's the first thing that comes to mind, that poster.
And that person's face.
Post,
but
yeah.
do you know by right after the elections, all the paraphernalia,
They're
billboard
Yes.
and everything should be removed?
Yes.
So in Antigua and Barbuda, we lack the standards that are required to just do the right thing.
Yeah.
Everything should be removed. Even after independence, all the paraphernalia, the flags, they're just there and eventually becomes garbage.
They do.
So we need to get it right. What are you thinking about politics?
When I think of politics, I find I have a very, I would say, textbook type of view. I
Let's
think
hear
of
that.
ability to change a country. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. And I think it stems from, I grew up, when I was born, there was a Labour government. Coming into childhood, I would say around maybe the age of 5, I then grew up under a UPP government, and then becoming an adult, I'm now living under a Labour government. So like seeing the difference in terms of an ability to change a country, I think that's what I view when I see politics.
All right. Now, before we even speak any more about politics and elections, we're going to get into the meat of the matter tonight. looking across the globe, which political leader or which country leader would you say that you admire? We're not talking about Antigua and Barbuda because we don't want people to say we're biased. I can start the ball rolling. Jacinda Ardern.
I was thinking about her as well.
Okay, you were thinking about her. So I stole your thunder. I'm sorry.
That's fine, that's fine. That's just how big she is.
Yeah, you might have to choose another one.
I think.
I just love the fact that she's young,
Female.
she's dynamic. Apart from the female, yeah? Apart from the female. Because I like my guy Maduro too. I like my guy, yes, I like Maduro in Venezuela. And I like my guy Biden. And I liked my guy Chavez.
I did too.
I love Chavez.
I think he
and
was
I
awesome.
loved Castro, but I don't like Putin. So
For me,
but Jacinda Ardern, that's
can
my
agree.
model politician.
that as
I'm
well.
watching her because one day I want to enter politics, so I'm watching her. I hope I'm not stealing your thunder again. I'm watching Mia Motley and the ladies, and even though she's not a politician, I follow Michelle Obama. I like her quite a lot.
Yes.
And I love my girl Kamala Harris. More power to the ladies. All right. Did I leave any for you?
Oh no, I still like Miss Ardern from New Zealand.
Okay.
So I
See,
still like her. That's
we
fine.
girls stick together.
for me, I think in terms
Find a
of
lady.
politician,
Oh dear.
I'm
He's
going
gonna
to
use
be.
Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, you see, she knows me
Oh
so
my
well.
God. She was outrageous.
My
He likes
absolute
that.
heartbeat when it comes to a politician I would like to idolize would be Margaret Thatcher.
Hello?
And the reason being,
Tell
she
me.
embodies that whole emphasis of transformation. And she
She
was
was
of the
bold.
opinion, even if it means my entire country will hate me at the end, I will do it because it is necessary.
That's called
And for
courage.
me, that's what we need in politics. Not
Yes.
people who are going to seek to satisfy, but somebody who's going to say, look, this is in the interest of the country. You can
Yeah.
protest, you can demonstrate, but once I know in my mind that it is good and it is for necessary, I'm willing to push
And not
for it.
people who are selfish enough that they serve one term,
Right.
and because they want to serve another term, they're not going to do anything
Right.
to upset the apple cart because you're thinking of another term, another term,
And I think
another
that's
term.
part of why I embrace her, because even you watch documentaries and interview of her leading up to the first general election she would have had to face as prime minister. A lot of interviewers would have asked her the question, you know, some of your policies have been quite unpopular. People would not have liked them. People would have protested. And she'd have been very blunt. She said, let me tell you something. I don't care if I serve one term as prime minister.
Exactly.
My satisfaction comes from the fact that I would have done what is right for Britain. So if Britons are angry because I did something in their interest, so be it. And she ended up spending 11 years.
And the men didn't treat her right at the end, but
No.
that's all right. That's all right. And I get
I find female politicians seem to have that experience.
They have a
even
lot
like,
of-
Even
yeah.
Theresa May, I thought that her term could have gone better.
yes.
She got a lot of fight from her own cabinet.
She did, and then Boris Johnson came. I don't
Yeah.
think that he was necessarily. I don't think anybody when in the beginning before like during Brexit, I don't think anybody thought that Boris Johnson would have become the next prime minister.
I think so.
I don't think
there were
anybody
people who
was
thought so.
prepared for him to actually become. I think they entertained the thought, but I think Theresa May, she stepped up, and then it was always a fight.
Yes.
But Boris Johnson
Conflict.
came, and then he kind of like swoosh, and the people said, "Okay, well, I guess we can." And that to me was a bit disheartening
And-
because I thought Theresa did a lot of the heavy lifting. She took
And
over
the
from David
negotiation.
Cameron after he decided, "Hey, let's go."
Let's call
and
it
that
a
was just
day.
a bad idea.
But
And-
you know what I realize in a lot of instances, men, and I don't want to sound like a feminist because I'm far from it. Men do not mind us assisting them to the throne, the political throne.
But
But
to
when
lead-
they reside at the top, they want you to know your place. Don't ever think that you can achieve this.
Right.
Because your role is administrative, your role is otherwise,
Right.
not to rule a country. Hence the reason why we females, we have to love each other.
I
We
agree.
have to protect each other. And we have to understand that my sister's success is my success. Because the men are not allowing us in. We have to force our way in. But that's for another conversation. In some instances, youth vote according to the family choices. So this is what my mother did, my father did. What are your thoughts on that?
A crying shame.
Oh dear.
Crying shame. You are your own human. You are your own voter. You are entitled to vote for whosoever you feel. It shouldn't be that mom is making the household decision, because I even saw it this year in St. Kitts, where a woman literally posted a video. Any one of my children who don't vote for X, them go do. That was her literal whole
Seriously?
video.
Those children must have been
I still have it on my
embarrassed,
phone, because the conduct of it was funny, but it was sad in terms of the end result. Now, my thing is, your parents don't know what you do when you go to a polling station. So let me
Not
tell you
at
something.
all.
You can tell them, yes, I will vote red, blue, green, orange,
Look
purple.
into the camera and
but
tell them that.
when you want to vote for somebody, you vote for that person. You don't let your parents
It's
persuade
a
you.
personal
as to
choice.
It is
and
your
a
choice.
personal experience.
As a citizen in a democratic state.
Lonnie?
I think if you go to school for roughly 12 years, or maybe a little bit longer depending, you go for education. Your parents send you there so that you can become better and become educated, etc. And I think that after you go through this lengthy period of education, and then the time comes for you to vote, and then you say, hey, my mommy said to do that, so I'm going to do that. Your mommy tells you to cut your hair. You don't cut your hair, but she tells you to vote. Okay, I'll do it. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because we want to have a voice for things that don't necessarily
Matter.
Yeah, that don't matter. But when the things that do
Yeah.
matter, we want, okay, well, let me give the power over to somebody else. We become very lazy in our decision making. And I don't think that that is correct, because we don't become lazy in things that are unimportant. We want to have a say at 12 and 13 about the type of shoes that we buy.
And we want to
where
go on a
bags
date.
come from. Right.
We want to start
Right,
dating.
right. And then 18 comes and we say, oh, I don't really feel like voting.
Let me
What
give up
you
my
mean?
sovereignty as a human.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
then you didn't have rights before, but you wanted them. Now you have the rights, you don't want them. It doesn't make any sense.
It's amazing, right? What is the top issue that bothers youth, your demographic?
Corruption.
Corruption?
Yes.
Explain.
I think there are a lot of persons who think that this person, both candidates are the same. It don't make any sense at vote because they are corrupt.
Some good are better than Lungu.
Yes, and I mean that's something that you always
Yeah.
hear, that everybody's corrupt, so it doesn't matter who I vote for, and I don't think that that is the appropriate thought, because if you think that somebody's corrupt, or if you think that there's some sort of conflict of interest, what are you doing about it?
Yes.
Not voting is not you doing something.
Right.
It's
Solving the
just
problem.
you just okay. Well, I'm
Allowing
not
that
going
person to continue.
Exactly. And so I think that we have to recognize that we have power.
Yes.
And if you want accountability, then you have to demand accountability. And it's not accountability saying, we want accountability, and then Tuesday, this bill was passed, but what was in it? I don't really know. That's not accountability, right? We have to demand it, and we have to ensure and enforce it. Whatever we put in place, we have to enforce that. And I think that that's really important in ensuring that we can remove that level of corruption. But we have to see that we are agents of change, I
Yes.
think, in order for us to think that corruption is should not be something that's a determining factor.
Right, and should not be accepted.
Yes.
Tell me.
For me, I would say opportunity. And opportunity is
Opportunity.
is a broad statement.
No, meaning I'm
Opportunity
asking,
being as it relates to education, as it relates
Or lack of opportunity.
to lack of
Lack of
opportunity,
opportunity,
as it
okay.
relates to education, as it relates to ability of personal development, as it relates to just basic things
Yes.
that can push you forward. A lot of young people who have businesses, and one of the greatest problems, you hear a lot of small business owners, there's lack of ability to get financial capital so that I can expand or improve. When you look at education, either difficulty in accessing education, the reality is, as a teacher, I can tell you our education system is failing a lot of children, and so that is another concern. And then I think when you look at opportunity at large, opportunity feeds into development.
Yes.
Where you have a population with very little opportunity to advance, you end up having a country with very slow, retarded, or no development.
or when you have a country where only a few have the opportunities for development
Right.
and to excel in business, academically, or otherwise.
Then you create two classes of citizens.
Exactly.
The haves and everybody
The
else.
have-nots. Are you guys registered to vote?
Of course.
Yes.
Do
As
you
soon as
plan
you
to
could get your
vote
license.
in the next election?
Of course.
So you would have voted in the past?
Yes.
Yes.
And you would have said earlier that we all have a responsibility
We do.
to vote. What are your thoughts on persons who don't vote, but they have the loudest voice after the elections?
Shut up.
Okay. You sound like Sir Vivian Richards. And you, Lonnie?
I think it is your choice not to vote,
Yes.
but I don't think that you should give away your power and then want to use your voice after.
Okay. Well, you said shut up. But
Be quiet.
I would probably say, be quiet, please. Guys, I have to share something with you because you know that the American election, it just ended, and my boy, Joe Biden, is president-elect. And you know, Donald Trump is insisting that he's not going any place. So loser, but that's all right. Thoughts from former U.S. President Barack Obama. There will always be reasons to think your vote doesn't matter. That's not new. What is new is a growing movement for justice, equality, and progress on so many issues. The general elections in Antigua and Barbuda is due every 5 years or before. If the Prime Minister decides to call a snap election, fine. Do you think we should have a set date for election like the U.S.? It's
Yes.
the first Tuesday in November, whether it's the third, fourth, whatever the date is, it's the first Tuesday in November every 4 years.
I agree.
We have random elections based on people's whims and fancy within a 5 years period.
Lonnie, would you like to go first?
Okay, sure. I do think so. I do think that we need to have fixed elections, even if we're not having a specific date or a specific day or time of the week or whatever. I think that we can at least have a range. So let's say between August and September, every 5 years, we should have elections between that specific time. And I think that's important because then it just becomes sort of like a game of, it's kind of like duck, duck, goose. You know, you're just waiting for duck, duck, and then you just say, okay, it's been 3 years, and we just go goose, and then you know,
we need a snap
elections,
election, yeah.
you know, and to me, it's not a game, and it shouldn't be
Serious.
treated right. It shouldn't be treated as a game, as though I have the power. You know, I've all of, oh boy, the sun is shining.
I've
What
done
about
some
election
great
tomorrow?
things, so let me
Yeah.
call election quickly while it's
Right.
still fresh in people's minds.
Right. I think in order for us to be, in order for it to be as fair as possible, there needs to be at least a time period that we can utilize.
Give
Or-
people opportunity to
Right.
campaign and
I don't even think just for campaign. I
No?
think just so that the power is just not in the person who is
Okay.
elected, because then to me that person becomes too powerful.
Okay.
They kind of, you know, they remove the opportunity for everybody to have a fair chance.
a level playing field.
Yes.
I can agree. In our electoral history, we've had at least 2 snap elections that I can remember from information. In 1984, and then we had one recently. The reason why I would agree with what Lonnie said is because essentially some will look at it as a game of strategy. When my popularity is at its highest,
Yes.
when my approval is at its highest, it is the best time to call a snap election. Of course, a snap election, I'm going to call it today for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I know that there's very little time for the opposition to really campaign and say, look, yes, you're looking at the good, but here's the negative, and this is why we should have a
Yes.
chance to govern.
Yes.
There's very little chance. It is a situation where, okay, everything is going good. For example, the last snap election we had, it was in the height of the tourism season. Job program was hiring people. You know, everybody's getting duty free. You know, everything is going well. Everybody's happy. So guess what? You call election, and I think the snap election was called maybe 3 weeks. It was funny to me because when it was called, I was actually in Anguilla at a regional debating competition, and I remember coming home to face the noise for 3 weeks, and the next thing you know, general election, new government is elected, and what it was intended to do was accomplished. The government increased its majority. When you have a situation like that, it leads to a government being able to overexert its power and use the public as a
The
toy,
mechanisms.
as a toy to,
Yeah.
to ensure that they stay in power.
And
so
this,
when things
this,
are good,
this is what youth are saying.
Right.
Because you're representing youth here tonight. So we don't want people to think that these are our personal opinions. these are the opinions of many.
Yes.
Term limits for politicians. I am for term limits. Listen, I'm not a youth, but I can say something now and then tonight, right? Term limits for politicians. I don't think anybody should be managing a government for years and years and years and years. And in some instances, the performance is terrible. But there's nothing to stop that group of people.
I think my normal phrase is "we like it so." Because if the performance is terrible, then we have a choice. We have
do have a
elections.
choice.
Get rid of them.
You
Yeah.
get rid of them, you know, and then you bring somebody in who you think is better, or who you think, if you're just tired of them, then you just bring somebody else in, you know, just so that you can see what else is out there.
And this happens in the Caribbean, it happens in Africa, it happens in place, even sometimes constitutions are changed so that someone can have an extra term because 2 terms have ended, 3 terms have ended, and I want to do 4 and 5 and 6. So I change the constitution. Madness.
I think for me, it's a balance. Because one,
Let me hear this.
in placing term limits, you are technically restricting, you can possibly, let me put it this, you can
let's hear
possibly
you.
restrict the democratic will of a people. Because if it is my desire as a population to see you in power for 40 years.
Seriously? I'm listening.
I'm just giving you a situation. Why should a constitution say I don't have the power as a citizen in a democratic state to have you in that position?
You can
That
vote
is the
for the
first
party.
thing,
You don't have to
right?
vote for that particular person.
But maybe
but
it's
you
the
can
person.
vote for the
But
policy.
maybe it
But
might
you
be
want
the
a particular person.
Because when you look at Antigua, when I
Oh.
look particularly at Antigua's history,
Yes.
one of our most revered politicians would be Savisi. Savisi spent 60 years in Antigua's politics in a variety of positions in different political systems.
But there are
and it was
people
based off of
who are still voting for Labour because of his influence,
Right,
even though
but
he
that
has
is
passed.
the will of the people.
But I am saying to you, the person therefore doesn't have to be there.
Right, but the party.
party.
Right, but I agree with you, but at the end of the day, it is due to the person's democratic will. What I can agree on wholeheartedly is introducing recall, where if a politician is serving in a capacity and you think that their performance is lacking, that you have the right to recall them even before a general election is called. I wholeheartedly agree with it. When it comes
this
to
is new.
when it comes to the idea of term limits, it is something that you have to approach carefully because you don't want to restrict the democratic will of a population.
So
That's
do
the
you
first
think
thing.
the
But then you also
democratic
have to
will of the
balance.
population in the U.S. is affected by 2 terms?
I think so.
The term-
Yes,
Really?
because there are
I
many
think
U.S.
people wanted more
presidents
Obama.
who exactly. There are many
People wanted
presidents who
more
have
Obama.
served for 2 terms, and if they could, they would. Case in point, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was president of the United States. He won 4 generally. It was because of him that they actually introduced term limits. Because
he was just winning and
after
winning,
2,
yeah.
he said, no, we're going to go a 3rd one. And after 3, he said, no, we're going to go another 4 years. And if he had lived, he would have served 16, maybe even more years as U.S. president.
Obama would have done an excellent job if he
I
didn't
think so
have
too.
if he didn't have a Republican Senate and still a Republican House. And he was black, they're racist, and they decided we don't want these black young people in America to think
That
that
they can
any
be
of them
somewhere.
will achieve this position anytime in the future. So we have to make sure that we shut him down.
And I think Trump was a very good person to follow that. I think coming off of Obama, people were they were gung-ho for Trump because they were tired of Obama, they were tired of him and what he represented, and Trump was the opposite. And I think he made a very good, follow-up to Obama.
Well, don't
So-
worry. His segue was cut short. 5 years, and we gone
And I
with
think
that.
he's done what he was meant to do. He's brought out the fact that racism is
It's still
alive.
alive.
It's still alive.
And well,
Yes.
in
and
the
living.
U.S.
And in the Senate.
Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing. He
I think he's done an
said
excellent
and did
job at that.
everything
That
that
they
all of
wanted
them
him to
were
do.
afraid to do.
Yes.
And that's why they all supported him. Let me tell you, right? You guys just keep your head together. Remain focused. We are depending on you. That's why you're on the Paula Show tonight. You're courageous, you're brilliant, and you're honest. Let's move on because I am not for I am for term limits, actually. And trust me, my term limit, I would want to do 1 term, then we have a review, and if you haven't performed well, you're not serving a 2nd term. But I am absolutely radical when it comes to politics. I don't make jokes, because as far as I'm concerned, too many politicians across the globe, they're selfish. Look at just look across the globe, and they line their pockets, take care of their family and friends, and the larger population suffers. I have a problem with that. And then when it's time for election, you're so nice. It's like a bad boyfriend or a bad girlfriend, because I don't want them to say I'm sexist, treat you bad. And as soon as they need a favor, you're the best thing since sliced bread. Learn and avoid the barriers and traps of life. Age. Age is a factor. 82 years old. President Condé in Guinea, he pushed for a new constitution so he could serve another term. 82. And his reason, he wants to modernize the country. 82 years of age. So that new push caused him to bypass a 2-term limit for president. And that sparked unrest in Guinea. 82 years old. What are your thoughts on maximum age for politicians?
Oh, yes.
What
Oh,
age you
yes.
think?
60?
Oh, yes.
70?
65.
Oh, no.
My
Hello.
thing
If we're
yes.
on a
I
pension
say
at
70.
62 and
Thank you very
65, why
much.
can't
If
they
you're
go
going
on
to tell a
pension?
civil
I would
servant
say-
retire
I
at
would say
65,
70.
you're telling
Which
people
70, Lonnie?
in the private sector leave. For most
We're seeing
courts
too much
across
of
the
you at
world, when you're
70.
70, you
Exactly.
retire. You need to go.
Exactly.
Because my thing is, at that age, I'm not saying
You
that
need to go and stay
at,
with
at an
grandchildren.
older
But the
age,
person-
you can't be
oh, no.
useful.
Hello.
You can contribute
But
on
Especially
them
if,
slow down.
especially if you started early.
Yes.
It's time to go.
Because if you start at age 30, that's giving
Exactly.
you
But
40
suppose you
years.
start at 60.
well,
then you take 5 and
well,
go.
you take 5 and go.
I think 70 is a max. That's it. 70, that's it. Even if you're in power, it just drops.
You have to leave.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
I can
if
give you
not-
extra 5 years.
if
I can give you 5
with-
So
years.
then we're going to have a by-election then.
Or
No
perhaps,
problem.
you have to be within, you cannot be any older than
Your term would allow.
65. Right.
Yes.
Going
You cannot-
into
Yes.
a new
Right.
term.
So you know that
Right.
if the
Okay,
term
so-
ends, it will be when you need to
Exactly.
go. No problem.
Okay.
We can agree on that.
I am not going to agree on 70. I say 60.
I can agree on that.
60,
I'm a fan of compromise.
60.
Not even 65.
No. There are other ways in which you can serve your country.
That thought would not have been popular in the 1990s.
It might not
I
have
would
been,
like you to see a picture of the British Parliament in the 1990s.
it might not have
Everybody
been
had grey hair.
popular, but I'm saying that is what I would like to see. 60 and you're out. So then you join early, you enjoy your years because you know at 60, that's it.
But then what happens when you're 60? When do you retire? If you retire at 65, what happens to the rest 5 years? What do you do?
Don't you know that after politics, there's a life?
I don't think I
These
can't see in
politicians
Antigua
usually have
that we-
businesses.
Yes, they usually lawyers.
Some
they have
of them
private
are lawyers
careers,
and they
etc.
still have their private practice.
And when you
so
serve
when
for a
they're
period of
finished
time,
with-
you get a government
Exactly.
pension.
I agree, but then
So you go and dance in the streets.
What politician has really, how many politicians have really come out of politics unless they were, let's say, voted out or whatever? And what did they do after?
We've had a few.
We've had a few.
So John St. Luce left before without having to be
They've
voted
had-
out. He
listen,
left on his
and
own
quite
will.
a few of
You
them
had
have their
persons
legal
like
practice.
Hugh Marshall
They
and
have
so
their
on. They left by their
businesses.
own authority.
Okay, but I don't think that is the desire of most. To come
Well,
out of
listen,
politics
it's a
that
conversation tonight and people are watching.
Right.
And if they haven't thought about it in the past, they'll be thinking about it now. And that's what the Paula Show does. We create conversation. So I bet you in some households, people are saying, what is Paula talking about 60? Lana sounds more
reasonable.
more reasonable 70. And that Kamali talking about 65. What he knows, that's the kind of conversation we want following the Paula Show. Okay, so we're at loggerheads with the terms, but that's okay. It's good.
But we can agree that there
conversation.
should be.
We
Yeah.
agree, though, that there should be an age limit, a maximum, and we agree that there should be term limits,
I
one
would
way or
say
another.
mainly for the leader, not necessarily for everybody. The leader of the party, not necessarily for persons who want to run as MPs.
Let me tell you something, right? There are politicians in this country who have served
40 years.
communities for decades, and the people are living in poverty. They're impoverished. Nothing has changed, and I don't know what you're talking about on the Paula show tonight, but I come here to talk truth.
Okay, and I would reiterate my statement. We like it so.
We like it so. Government is continuous. What one did not complete, the other can.
No.
No?
You don't think so?
I think you can, but will they do it? No.
Okay.
Because the next point I was
Because I
going
want
to
to come and
make,
make my
why
own
do they
mark.
undo good programs?
Okay, no, I don't agree with undoing, but I don't necessarily think, if I have a plan in place, that you are going to say, well, you know, Lonnie's plan was very good, you know, I think I'm going to continue with it. I mean,
You
everybody
can
wants to-
improve it.
I
You
agree,
can.
I agree, you can improve it, but I don't think it is the will of persons who come in to then want to, you know,
Make
to
the previous
continue.
administration
Because then
looks good.
Why did they leave? If I'm going to continue, they could have just stayed.
Can I add to
You
that
know?
and bring out a very important point? For me, I find our development as a country very ad hoc.
I agree.
Very ad hoc and very retarded. Not retarded as in stupid, but retarded as in there are moments of great progress
Oh,
and then
okay.
there are moments of
Delay.
very little right. I think part of that is due to the fact that we've never sat down as a population or even as a government and said, look, this is our national development plan. That
For the next 20 years.
So that
I heard
even
there was
if
one. I
no, there was
heard-
never one. Stop it. So that even when a different political party comes into office,
You
it's
buy
not a
into
matter
that.
of following the plan. It's a matter of how much of the plan have I accomplished as a governing party. I think that is absent from
Everybody
our
wants
politics.
this.
But then we-
Everybody operates in
Right.
silos because everybody
so
wants
now
a legacy,
Our democracy,
personal
our
legacy.
democracy turns into, okay, I am going to come into office, I am going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else is coming and somebody is going to possibly tear it apart. One of the case in points that I see, when you look at Board of Education, the person who is now our Governor General, His Excellency Sir Rodney Williams, as Minister of Education, when they introduced the Board of Education Act. People literally protested in Antigua. Oh, we're supposed to have free education. You're killing our opportunity to have free education. Now you look at 25 plus years now that Board of Education has been created. Some of those people that protested, their children now have master's
Benefited.
degrees based off of that same Board of Education. But then
Sometimes
at the
they're a
point
little
in
bit
time,
short-sighted.
but then at the point in time it is introduced, oh, the Grand Assembly of the people protested, right? So then it becomes a situation where and this is something I've seen constantly, we oppose for opposing's sake, then we go into
Or we
office
op- or
and we
we
destroy
oppose on
things.
party lines.
Right, and then we destroy things that make sense
Yes.
just based off of pure party politics.
And
What does it do for
emotions.
progress? And that is why I can see why in the 1920s you'd have had movements supporting systems of government like communism. Instead of having constant change, we have one thing. And unless we can
Consistency.
really figure out where we want to go as a nation, that will continue, will be to our own detriment.
That's an excellent point. And Lonnie, you had something to add?
No, I was just going to say, I don't think we thrive on foresight. And
Yeah.
so I think it is therefore evident in the way, just even in the way that we think,
Yes.
because the government can have a 20-year plan, but we're looking at next year. We don't care about next year. We're looking at now.
We're looking at today.
Right, we're looking at
This-
today.
Not
and
even
then
this year,
tomorrow.
today.
Exactly. You know, there's a special. Oh, that special look good today. But you don't have to pay my light bill next month. But it's special.
Yes.
We have to look at things
Yes,
in
but then-
perspective.
How we prioritize.
But the
Yes,
Volvo.
but then the 20-year plan is not, okay, this is what we're going to do 20 years from now. It is from year one, from 2018 and 2019 and 2020, what are the things that we're going to do each year so that when we reach the end of the 20 years, we can say we would have accomplished
And we
it.
totally understand
But do
that.
we care to accomplish those things? Are they important to us?
And that's part of our political culture. We encourage our people to be like this because then politicians thrive off of an uneducated, we're speaking politically wise, population.
What are your qualifications for someone who wants to enter politics?
I would say
a college education and good character.
yes. I always I don't know. I agree with the college education. I think that would be very beneficial. But I think for the purpose of representing people, I would say something like a state college education at some sort of tertiary level. Even an associate's degree, I think is sufficient. For the
We're setting the bar too low,
okay,
Lonnie.
and I understand that, right? But we want the people may not necessarily, the person may not have the same opportunity to further themselves.
Lonnie,
And so you
this
don't
is
want
a
it to be
different type of politics. This is a new dispensation. I can
So you think going
understand in the
forward-
days of the cane cutting and all of that. You know, some people might not. But listen, we have to hold these politicians to higher ideals. You understand? Because remember, they're no longer talking to people who are not reading. And we, the population, oh, y'all don't agree with me?
No, as a teacher, no. As a teacher, no.
Stop me short in my track. Okay? Stop me. Stop me. I'm sorry. Tell me. Take it away.
I would agree with you in terms of the necessity for college
bachelor's.
training,
A
right?
bachelor's.
But I can also agree with Lonnie in terms of, persons might not necessarily like or want the person with a degree. They might prefer, and remember, the first role of an MP is representation
people.
before
So you
government.
mean there are people in constituencies who would not want their MP to have a bachelor's degree?
I'm not saying
No,
they
they
wouldn't
don't
want
want
it.
it.
Or maybe
but
they
the
don't
person
care.
they would want as MP might not necessarily have a bachelor's degree.
And it's
or
not a big deal
master's
to
degree.
them.
And it's not a big deal for them because at the end of the day, as I
So you
said,
don't think
it
the
should be
mandatory?
The first role of an MP is representation, which is
Okay.
why I think in politics, there is no, let's say, educational requirement really placed to an MP. The only thing our Constitution requires, you must be able to read, write, and articulate in the Queen's Standard English. Tory done. That's it. Because the idea is more representation.
Right.
I think our political system as well did forget the fact that the same people you ask to represent will have to govern. And so I think in that regard, I can understand where you're coming from in terms of educational requirement. But then too, you're looking at it from the average Caribbean mindset. Everything must be academic. I might not necessarily have a master's degree in accounting, but I might be the world's best fisherman or the world's best agriculturist or the world's best farmer. I might have more knowledge than a person with a degree. So if you put me in the role of agriculture minister, I can work wonders.
But I was thinking,
And I don't
wasn't
think
even
they should
thinking
necessarily
about
be minister.
academics alone.
thinking about
Because
that.
when you attend college, you network, yes? And you have to be persuasive in your presentations, and you have these opportunities to brainstorm,
And
think,
develop, grow.
and develop, and that's along
Other
those
than-
lines I'm talking
Oh, so
about.
you're looking to find progressive people.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't
But then
necessarily
you can
think that
also
you're
have,
progressive because
but then
you
you
go
can
to
have educated
university.
dunces because a lot of our politicians actually do have
You
degrees.
seriously want to,
and we've seen their
you
performance.
seriously want to make
I can make that statement. I would take the repercussions with.
Okay, so what are your thoughts? Degree, no degree?
I would say for a representative, I would say at
Tertiary.
least the tertiary, some sort of tertiary level education.
Antigua State College.
Yeah,
That's
I think
enough.
so. Associate degree
Associate
level.
degree.
I think that is
Okay.
sufficient. But with that being said, I don't think because you're an MP means that you should become a minister of government. I don't think that you need to be the minister of information or the minister of fisheries or whatever. I really don't think that because how many politicians
So the cabinet
really
might
have?
be too heavy.
I think
It's too time consuming. They focus more on
the
cabinet
people.
than people.
Right, I
Than
want
the
the
people.
right. So the people
Okay.
vote for the representation. They don't vote for you because they think, oh, Kamali's going to be an excellent minister of agriculture. They don't care. They're looking about themselves. They're looking about their community and their constituency, and that's why they voted for you. So I think that if we could have something in place where we have ministers of government that are not necessarily MPs, or we decide, okay, there are 5 MPs who we want to become ministers, then we do something like that, or we amalgamate certain departments and ministries,
That
and we
suggestion
don't
was
have
made.
10 of different departments that could just come together, have less people, and work more efficiently if they were
And
not
we'd
separated.
save some money too because we
yes.
have to pay benefits to them.
Actually,
We have to pay benefits to
yes,
them.
we
We have to
can.
pay salaries.
Yes.
And,
Exactly. Yeah.
and they serve 2 terms and 1. They get a pension. So you're saving some money right there.
But
You're
what
going-
she's saying has been mentioned before because in the 1990s, there was a constitutional review that was initiated by the Lester Boyd administration and was done by Sir Fred Phillips, a statistician who is a constitutional lawyer. And in his presentation, because I literally read the document, he said, look, Antigua needs 10 ministries. He literally named them. And he said, what you need in politics is not necessarily that, because a prime minister can determine the size and composition of the civil service.
Right. Yes.
He can change the ministries based off of his own requirement, which is why you can have a cabinet of 10 ministers today and a cabinet of almost 40 the next day. What he said, 10 ministries, any new departments that the government creates based off of progress
should be
fit
morphed into.
Fit it in.
Yeah.
But you have a set number in terms of the cabinet. That's what happens in the United States. Any president coming in knows I have 15 people that I can choose and no more. Because there are no more departments for anybody to serve.
And I think that that would be important, you know. Let's just have the ministries, and instead of have departments being run by a minister, just let's put them together, education, youth, you know, put the other relevant things together. Not you have legal affairs and I have immigration, or you have this and I have that. You know, like we put them together.
So a lot of repetition and inefficiency and problems that come about.
Duplication.
Yes.
One youth said, seems like both established parties are the same. I feel constrained to vote. Oops.
Gospel.
So this is what the young people are saying, because I did some research and young people are saying one is not better than the other.
I can agree.
A number of your friends have been saying that as well.
It is a very popular thought, and I can understand where it originates from, because there is, I don't have to accept, but I can understand there's a difference.
No, I'm listening.
I can understand where the viewpoint comes from, because if you're looking at a person who is saying, look, when I grew up, I heard this government is corrupt, this government doesn't listen to you, this government is not going to govern in your own interest, this government is not going to care about you, this government has overtaxed you and we will remove taxes. And then you come into government and your government is corrupt, your government creates economic turmoil, your government is introducing taxes.
Who can you trust?
Then I'm going to sit in mid like, but I elected you based off of the fact that you said Tom was different from Dick.
Yeah.
But Tom, Dick, Harry, Susan, Mary,
They are
and
the
Elizabeth,
same.
everybody knock one head.
But is that reason for young people not to vote? I think even if you're constrained, I've been saying to
Vote for
people,
somebody else.
get a sheet of paper, and I like to write. Note the benefits, note where they have failed, either one, and someone must have an edge.
Yeah.
Even if they're not from the two main
Someone
parties.
must have an edge.
They will. I think if we do
Someone must have an edge.
Yes.
But we have to stop voting on emotions and what we spoke about before, family, relationships and all of that. It has to be personal. Elections are won by one vote. It's important for people to vote. Talking about performance and character, if a politician is involved in unethical behavior, what is the role of the leader?
To
Throw
hold them
him
to
out.
account. Yeah. Hold them to account. Though. And then jail.
Yeah.
Jail
If necessary.
I
in
agree.
Antigua and Barbuda?
Yes.
That's
And
not
we done
gonna
the two.
happen.
The young people think that politicians should be jailed.
Yes.
Yes, I think so, because what happens, because this was a thought I had today as well, if we don't hold the people who govern us to a standard, then our children will not be held to standard. So when I hit Kamali's going to go, oh, well, you hit me, and I'm going to go, so what? What are you going to do about it? Right? And then we saw those kind of things sort of replicated in Trump's time. You had, I mean, when you heard about people talking, oh, that's what Donald Trump does. You know, he was just very aggressive, sort of very much like a bully, right? And so children replicate that. If
It
we
became
don't,
acceptable behavior.
exactly. So if the people in the highest, you know, in the highest seat,
Office, yeah.
right, they're not held to account, then who are we down here? Why are we going to be held to account? If people say you're stealing our money, you've had some sort of misappropriation of funds, you're just this nepotism, we don't think we're prospering. If nothing happening to you, what could happen to me, right? And so we lose a sense of justice. And so we all then feel as though, you know, we can do it too, and justice doesn't need to prevail. And then that's sort of the message that we send, and we create that culture.
And then it creates a problem when those persons are not held to the same level
Exactly.
that we are held to. So here it is, the politicians, they do whatever they want. they're not imprisoned, but someone else does it.
And the
the
first
same
thing that
justice
happens-
system causes that person to be imprisoned because you have broken the law.
Because as a normal person, if I'm accused of a crime, the first thing's going to happen, they're going to come to warrant, they're going to search my house, they're going to arrest me, they're going to question
Remand.
me. I'm probably going to go in the newspaper. All of John Public will see I was accused of X, Y, Z, terror the other. But you look at our politicians, accused of everything under heaven, no newspaper, no searching of
newspaper.
houses. To what extent?
That is true.
To what extent?
But it's a newspaper.
Because if I am accused of robbing a school cafeteria, all and sundry will
But then
hear.
you also have to take into consideration that generally white-collar crimes are, one, they tend to be underreported, and they tend to
Yeah,
not
but not
be...
all of it is white-collar crime.
That is true. But I'm just
Listen.
saying, put it into perspective.
So we all agree on the Paula show tonight that if there is unethical behavior in government or in a political party, the leader is ultimately responsible for ensuring that some action is taken.
Yes.
Some of the most monumental changes have occurred because of ordinary citizens. The abolition of slavery, voters' rights, and rights of women to vote were all changes that came about because of the willingness of ordinary citizens to protest and demand change from political leaders. Do you agree?
I agree.
Yes?
And I think that's why I mentioned earlier about not necessarily having that sort of academic qualification, because ordinary citizens can make the change, and sometimes
And decide
they,
you
right,
don't
sometimes
have
they
to.
can be the best leaders.
Yeah. It's the young people on the Paula show, and I enjoy conversation with young people because sometimes they just, we adults, they cause us to think. They cause us to think. Left field. I was in the center tonight, and now I'm far right sometimes, and I'm far left sometimes. They've moved me off my crease. You understand? That's why I love to engage in conversation with them. We're wrapping up part one of our program tonight. And I just want you to look at the camera and explain briefly. It's a message to young people, the voting population. Just let them understand why their vote is important. Because tonight we're talking about politics and voting and civic education, everything political tonight, no holds barred. Why should they vote?
All right. It's important to vote because voting, yes, it is a choice, but it is also, it is your power. It is your power to make the change that you want. You can't say that you want to change and not be the change. We want to do things. We don't want things without us. So if we don't want to be left behind, we have to be a part of the decision-making process. And the first step to that process is to vote and to decide who you want to lead your future.
Nice, very nice. Kamali?
For you,
Remember
man,
I said briefly, right?
I know. For me, my message is simple. As a citizen in a democratic state, your most powerful tool and most powerful weapon is your ability to vote. Because by voting, that is you saying, this is what I want for my country. This is what I want for myself. This is where I want my society to go. And the only how this process can start is if I start by electing you or even electing yourself. But that is where it all starts.
Beautiful. I know you enjoyed this program tonight. Don't forget to join us next week, Tuesday night, for part 2 of my conversation with Lonnie Richards and Kamali Mannix. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show, and have a good evening. Goodbye.